the answers. Direct solve means like you work it out the way you would in the classroom.
Yeah.
Like all the stuff you've been learning over the years, that's a direct solve. That means you just do what you always know to do. Using the answers sometimes is a good choice because you can maybe determine something from the answers, each time. All right.
Mm-hmm.
So here are some bullet points that I threw in the class here. So direct solve can take too much time. That's one of the disadvantages of direct solve. It can take a lot of time, especially like something like a system of equations. And
Yeah.
if you don't know how to do the problem, it can take even longer, right? So that's, if you don't know how to do the problem, sometimes it is better to use the answers, all right? Now you might think, okay, well, why wouldn't I just use the answers all the time? Well, the answer to that is the answers can also take too much time if you, well, don't do it correctly. Like, let's say you put the number in and you do something wrong and it's actually the right answer, but you made a mistake. The other thing is if you just blindly guess, you just try a number, it didn't work, you try another number, it didn't work. That is not a good strategy either. So if you're going to use the answers, you have to like learn something each time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And your decision is really based on how quickly you can either direct solve it or substitute in the answers.
Yeah.
So it really comes down to like, okay, I know it, I should solve it, or I think I can do the answers pretty quickly. And I think this one's fairly obvious. This only applies to multiple choice questions. So the free response ones, you just have to work out.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to look at the types of answers that you might see on standardized tests. Just so you can kind of, because they're all patterned. They're all like, they're not random. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
So the first type that you might see is some sort of ascending answer, like 1, 2, 3, and 4. Descending would be like 10, 9, 8, 7. Sometimes they have patterned answers, which are where they go up by zeros like 4, 40, 400, 4,000. You'll sometimes
Yeah.
see stuff like that. And then occasionally you'll see what I call engineered answers. So something would be like, it'd be like 3 and -3. Okay. Or 3/4 and -3/4, or 4/3, or 1/3, and a few other ones. So these are things that you should know. You don't really need to like play this out as you're working through it. You just want to be aware that um, you can gain something from the answers. Like, let's say 10 is too large, you might try 8 because there's something you could learn about those answers. Patterned answers, they just vary. Sometimes you see multiples of 2, 2, 4, 8, 16. So just some things to think about. Now, let's look at our first example here. And actually what I do in these, let me get something open here, is we are going to look at the answers first.
Okay.
So we will look at the problem, but I want you to just look at the answers and see if you notice anything. And there's not really much to notice here, except that they go up by 2. 2, 4, 6, 8. Not really much to learn, but you can always sort of, if you just cover up the problem by 2, you can say, okay, what's going on with them? They go up by 2. So here's the actual question. And again, you have to decide, do you want to direct solve this, or do you want to try the answers? And it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's no work. So I'll leave that to you. You can either solve this out directly or try the answers. Either is okay.
Okay. Is it C?
How did you come up with that? Did you try the
I
answers or did you solve it?
I just direct solved it
So
because I
you did
already know
like,
how to like do problems like that, so it was like faster that way, I guess.
yes. Now, one of the potential disadvantages is that if you didn't solve, like, let's say you chose to solve the one on the right first, and you got
Mhm.
2x equals -4, x equals -2, that answer is not there. And it doesn't mean that the answer, it doesn't mean that the answer is 2. So that's where you gotta be careful. Sometimes they only want one of the answers.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's look at another problem here. All right, so this time we're gonna look at the answers. All right, so tell me what you notice, if anything, about these answers.
Um, they keep increasing.
Okay, anything else? Like, so do they increase by the same amount? Like, this is
No.
+5, this is +4, this is +10. There's not really a pattern there. Anything
Yeah.
else about the answers?
Um, not really. There's no fractions.
Okay, one of them is negative.
Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of important. The fact that one is negative and the other are not. That could be useful. Okay, so let's look at a new problem here. And before you try to solve it, I want you to think about the following, that if you're going to try the answers, you have to try them in 2 places. So the number of places that you have to try the answer matters. If it's one place, that's pretty easy. It's also pretty easy to solve. 2 places, you could go either way. And it doesn't really matter. But just keep that in mind. It's not like you're putting it in one place. You have to double the number of calculations that you do. So go ahead and give this one a try and see what you come up with.
Okay. Um, is it A?
Is A. Now, did you direct solve or did you try the answers?
I'm gonna try the answers.
Yeah. So the when you work this out here, if for example, you don't subtract correctly, that could lead to a problem. If you don't add correctly, that could lead to a problem. So there's no like guaranteed success. Okay. But you
Yeah.
might start thinking, well, why don't I just always try the answers? And that's a reasonable thing to think about and say, well, it's working a lot. It does work a lot. But we're gonna
Mhm.
look at some problems now where there is a choice to be made. I mean, this is all of this is about saving time. So here are the answers to the next problem. What do you notice about these answers? Does anything stand out to you?
Two of them are fractions and two of them are whole numbers.
So depending on the problem, it could be a lot easier to try the whole numbers.
Yeah.
But what happens if those don't work, right? Well, that means you either have to try the fraction or you have to go back and solve it. And what I can't do is say, well, this for sure always work. You have to kind of decide, like, is it better for me to just work it out and see which was my correct answer? I trust my solving skills, or I'm going to try some numbers and maybe it works. And I'll leave that decision to you.
Yeah. Okay. Is it D?
Is D. Good. Did you try the answers or solve it?
I tried the answers.
Yeah, so I'll just work this out here. 2x minus 8 equals x. When you subtract x from both sides and add 8, you get x equals 8, confirming your answer. All right. Next problem here. Again, we're going to look at the answers first. Also notice that most of the try the answers problems tend to apply to like sort of algebraic stuff where you have to solve, less so the word problems here. So all of these are fractions. Notice that B and C are flips of each other, A and D are flips of each other, which suggests that there's some sort of division multiplication in the problem that you have to be careful of. If you are going to direct solve, sometimes it's good to do it by covering up the answers. Like you just try to not even look at them. You just say, okay, what do I do to solve this equation? And that way you're not trying to like match it to an answer without doing it. So if you're truly going to direct solve, which is probably the right strategy here, try to do it without looking at the answers on your test. If it's in person, you can cover up the answers. If it's on a screen, you can't do that. But I'll let you try this one and see what you come up with.
Okay. Is it D?
It is D, yes. All right, so now let's look at some full-on questions. I would encourage you to look at the answers before you decide to solve. So it says x squared plus 10 equals 91. What is the positive solution to the given equation? So if you're going to try the answers, like these are really hard to square.
Mm-hmm.
This is no calculus. You probably wouldn't try those, okay?
Yeah.
But it's up to you. You can solve it.
Is it just A?
It is A. So they are going to get more difficult. I'm just really wanting you to. The whole point of this exercise is to decide whether to direct solve or try the answers.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to try the answers, choose ones that are nice to try or that you get some information on.
Is it D?
There's D. Now, one of the things you might think about when you're doing this is what numbers can you take the square root of? You can take the square root of 16 like you did here. The other ones don't actually have, other than 9, that does work. You can only take the square root of certain things. So when you have a problem where you're doing some sort of specific operation, that also helps to say, well, I can't take the square root of 11. I can't take the square root of 14. So you're reducing answers by taking a look at what is even reasonable. So we're kind of finally up to a legitimate question here. So go ahead and give this one a try. You're welcome to solve it however you want.
As C.
Okay. And did you try the answers or did you direct solve it?
I direct solved it.
Direct solve it. Okay. So let me try this here. 2 times 3 squared plus 4 times 3. Does that equal 3 plus 3 times 3 squared? So 18 plus 12. Does that equal 3 plus 27? And it does. All right. Good job. Okay. So we're going to look at some new problems here. These are the more like the test questions. These are more reasonable that you would expect to see. Again, anything on the table, you can direct solve, you can
Okay.
try the answers, totally up to you.
Is it D?
So did you direct solve or did you?
I just direct solved.
So you wrote x minus 1 equals 8 and x minus 1 equals minus 8. This would be direct solve. Direct solve would be what I call is their direct method is to use the stuff you have in the classroom. So why don't you look at that one more time? If you are going to direct solve, these will lead you to the right answer.
Is it B?
So let's just solve it here together. Add 1, add 1, add 1, add 1. So x is 9 or x is negative 7. Okay, but is that what it's asking for here? Is that, let me highlight it. What does it want here?
Oh.
So it wants you to take your answer and subtract 1.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be the two possibilities?
-6. Oh, -8 and 8.
And so when you look back, you're like, well, I wonder if there was another way to do that. So there's two ways to get 8. The absolute value of 8 is 8, and the absolute value of -8 is 8.
Mm-hmm.
So if, for example, it's just said the absolute value of x minus 3 equals 4, and it said dot, what is x minus 3? Well, x minus 3 is either 4 or it's -4.
Yeah.
All right, new question here. All right, so this one, I want you to look at the answers and hopefully you will decide to just direct solve it since the answers aren't really pleasant to try.
Yeah. Is it B?
Uh, yes, very good. Okay, so here's kind of your true, we've done a few of these, but this is a real legitimate question you would see, meaning this is the difficulty you should expect, and with the strategies we've talked about, if you're going to try answers, you should try 1 and 65 first.
Yeah.
Okay. But let's just try 65 because I want you to see what the problem, like you should use your intuition. 2 times 65 minus 5. That's 130. 130 minus 5 is 125. 7 times 125 is a pretty large number. You're subtracting
Mm-hmm.
2 times 65 minus 5. Sorry, 2 times 65 and then minus 5. And then you're multiplying it by 2. So again, it's 125 minus 2. It's minus 2 times 125. All right. So this ends up being 5 times 125 or 625, which is fairly large, but let's just take a look here. 4 times 65 plus 5, that's 70 to 80. So these are not the same. But
Yeah.
how long did that take to try?
Not very long.
Okay, but you try to keep in mind you want to answer these questions in 1 to 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So to me that felt like a long time. Maybe you said, oh, that's pretty fast. Sometimes you can just sort of say, well, the numbers are kind of large. I mean, maybe it does work out. So if you're going to try a number, you should try 1. But
Mm-hmm.
again, that worst case scenario is, well, what if 1 doesn't work? What if 65 doesn't work? Then what am I going to do? And so this is what I don't really have a great answer for you. There is a shortcut to this, but I guess I'd like to know what you would do here. Would you try 1 and then 65, or would you direct solve this?
I'd maybe try 1 and 65 first, and if they both didn't work out, then I'd just direct solve it.
Okay. So I'm gonna help you out here. 1 does not work, and 65 does not work. So you do have to direct solve this.
Okay. Is it C? I don't know if you're muted, but I can't hear you.
You're right, I'm muted. I apologize.
Okay, there you go.
So one of the things that you can notice is that these are the same. 2x minus 5 and 2x minus 5 is the same. Not the same over here, which we'll get to. So this is like saying 7a's minus 2a's, which is 5a's. So it's 5 times 2x minus 5
Mhm.
equals 4 times x plus 5. And that makes this a lot easier to solve.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and so from here, I'm gonna subtract 4x to get 6x equals 45. 45 divided by 6, they're both divisible by 3, ends up being 15 over 2.
Oh. Okay, yeah, that makes more sense.
Right, so what I wish, and this is one of the, I don't have another problem like this, but we've got another reasonably good question here, and then we'll probably transition to some other things here. But give this a look and let me know what you come up with.
Hey, that's huge. Is it D?
You said which letter? A, B, C, D.
D?
E. This one?
Yeah.
I'm just asking because I B like boy or D like dog.
I said D.
D. Okay. So this one you can solve directly by cross multiplying. Did you do that or did you try the answers? And I'm guessing you did not try this.
No.
Okay. So did you cross multiply
Yeah.
or do something else?
I just cross multiplied.
Okay. So it's 5 times x plus 20 equals 15x. Now make sure you multiply both of these to solve. You should get a different number
Oh.
for x. And remember, you don't actually want x, you actually are going to take x and divide it by 5.
Oh, yeah. Is it C?
So let's take a look. 5x plus 100 equals 15x. Subtract 5x from both sides. 100 equals 10x. So x equals 10. And then because we're taking 10 and dividing it by 5, yes, it is 2. Good.
Okay.
Now there's always kind of another way. And so there's what I call the indirect method, which is how students students who get the very best scores on these things, they use the indirect method. And they're kind of using a variation of what you've seen in the classroom. So I'll show you that, and then we'll move to this. So because we want x over 5, that's the flip of this. So x over 5 equals x plus 20 over 15. And to go to 15, you multiply by 3. So you have to multiply the top and bottom by 3, which means that 3x equals x plus 20. Okay. And so that allows you to find x faster. X is 10, same as before. And then you divide by 2 to get x.
Oh, okay.
Now, that's where we're going. Like, that's where if you do a ton of practice, you will for sure be able to do stuff like that.
Okay.
Right. Okay, so the next topic here is I don't want to say this. It's quadratic formula. But before actually, so we'll just move to quadratic formula. This is, believe it or not, you will get a problem that is just a straightforward, like, what is the quadratic formula? So a little review here: ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. X equals minus b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So you have to know this formula. I don't think it's given. Even if it was given, you wouldn't want to you wouldn't want to go look for it. You'd want to know it. So you're learning it so that you can answer one question on the test with quadratic formula.
Okay.
That's all. It's like one time you will use it. Okay. All right. So here is a problem, and what I want you to notice in this problem is that the answers are really, really similar. So you don't have to show your work, you just have to choose the right answer. So there might be a way to get it down to 2 answers pretty quickly using this formula, either by looking at kind of this first part or the part under the root.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll leave that to you here. I'm sure you've seen quadratic formula. Let me snip it in here again. But I'd like you to see what you come up with here.
Okay. Is it A?
Take a look here. So when you take the negative of b, that's negative of -7. So what that does is it becomes 7. That gets rid of those 2 answers. So now you're down to just this part, the b squared minus 4ac. And probably what will happen is that you will potentially either make a sign error or not. I think you've done this correctly. Let me just check here. -7 squared minus 4 times 3 times -1. So it's 49 plus 12, not minus 12. 49 plus 12. So it's really easy to get that sign on.
Yeah. Oh, it's plus 12, yeah. I did -12 on accident.
It's easy to do that. Um, okay, so let me look for, grab another one of these. So just be very careful with your signs there. Here's another one. Let's see if it's snipped in or not.
Okay. Is it B?
Let's take a look here. So it is minus b plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 1 all over 2 times 4. So you're in good shape here. You've got the -3 over 4, -6 over 8 is -3 over 4. So it's probably A or B. It comes down to the part inside here. So 6 squared is 36 minus 4 times 4 is 20. So what I'm seeing here is that it's -6 plus or minus the square root of 20 over 8. Is that what you have for under the square root?
Yeah.
Okay, so that reduces a little bit differently. Um, it's not an important thing to be able to reduce it other than to recognize, well, is it 13 or is it 5? The square root of 20, 2 and 10, 2 and 5 becomes 2 square root
Um,
5. So that's why it's A. Now, if we just keep going here, now when you divide by 8, you're dividing both by 8. So -6 divided by 8 plus or minus 2 square root 5 divided by 8, and then they both cancel out. So it becomes -3 over 4 plus or minus square root of 5 over 4.
okay.
All right, so let's have you try one more of these. You will get like one question like this, or it's all this work for one moment in time, but kind of like hitting a drop shot in tennis. You can't do it every time, but you want to be sure the time you do it, it's perfect.
Yeah.
How are you doing on this one?
I think okay. Is it D?
So when you look at the answers, notice that the number in front kind of helped you out here. Decide what it is. So it's minus B over 2A is that first number, which is minus 12 over 2 times 3. Minus 12 over 6 is minus 2. So it's either going to be A or B.
Yeah.
And probably based on what you just said, it probably would end up being A because of the fact that it's the prior two. But we gotta keep going. So that's kind of thing one.
Mhm.
So next thing here, and this is kind of important, is that believe it or not, the solutions to this quadratic are the same as the solutions to this quadratic.
Yeah.
Okay, and the reason is because this 3 is just a scaling factor. So let me quickly grab a sketch of graph of that. So you can see that here, 3. And this, again, this is one of those like shortcuts. Like if you study enough, if you do enough of this stuff, you start realizing, oh, I actually can solve the problem exactly using this approach here. Let me just snip this in for you so you can see it. So even though they're different graphs, they cross at the same place. And quadratic formula on this one's much easier. So if you can reduce it, you should. So it's still minus B minus 4 plus or minus the square root 4 squared minus 4 times 1 times 2. All right, all over 2 times 1 now. So you still get that negative 4 over 2. You still get that there. Inside the root here, 4 squared is 16. 4 times 1 times 2 is 8. So it's negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 8 over 2. And
Yeah.
it's not a classroom problem. It's not, you're not getting graded on work. So you just start looking at the answers like, well, it's not 30 there, it's probably the 2. So that's a good enough reason to select it. You don't have to justify it. But if you wanted to go a bit further, the square root of 8 is 2 and 4, 2 and 2. So it becomes 2 square root of 2. Negative 4
Mhm.
plus or minus 2 square root of 2 over 2 over 2 like that.
Okay.
This becomes negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 2.
Okay. That makes sense.
So there you go. There's the answer. And again, there's always a way to get it down to at least 2 answers.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and stop here for today.